Hi, I'm Christa Jacobson, headmistress of the Budo, where we teach authentic ninjutsu and classical samurai bujutsu. And for those of you who don't know what that is, those are the ancient martial arts of the ninja and samurai. Well, I'm going to go on one of my night walks again tonight and share some of my thoughts in the martial arts with all of you guys. Tonight we're going to be talking about ninjutsu training and bujutsu training. And how that applies to the Budo. I've been getting lots of questions about keiko or actual training, and because of these questions that I've got on social media, it spurred a thought. It was like, you know, maybe I should just take one of my night walks and just kind of go over lots of the questions that I get and kind of share my thoughts on those particular topics. Now I will say that I'm going to be approaching this obviously from this particular organization. I'm not approaching it like I'm going to try to answer the questions in the sense of like, this is the general concept of ninjutsu, or this is the general concept of bujutsu, or whatever. It's going to be the way that we teach it here and our approach here at the Budo. So I guess the topic of tonight's conversation is going to be the essence of ninjutsu training and the essence of bujutsu training, and what it is that you should be striving for when you're training in Koryu ninjutsu, Koryu bujutsu, right, or the ancient arts, right, of Japan. So to understand where we're coming from, in case you guys haven't ever watched any of my videos before, if this is one of the first videos that you guys have ever seen, from the jump, like I introduced myself, I'm Christa Jacobson. I'm the head of the Budo, which means School of the Warrior Way, and we teach 7 ancient traditions within this school that are Koryu. Now, Koryu, and this is what gets into the topic tonight, Koryu means the arts that are taught in the age of the samurai, the age of the ninja, right, that sort of thing. So in Japan there's a split. 1868, anything that was taught previous to 1868 would be considered Koryu, and anything after 1868 would be considered Gendai Budo. Gendai Budo means modern martial arts. So those particular martial arts typically denote the philosophical idea of Do, which means the way of enlightenment. And you see martial arts like karate do, aikido, kendo, judo, iaido, do. Now, just because it's a do art doesn't mean that the individuals can't be a really good fighter. That a lot of times people think, well, if it's a Gendai Budo and it's a Do art and it's this way of enlightenment, that means they're not good warriors or something. I've heard that concept, and that's not true. You can study Gendai Budo or a modern martial art from Japan and be a wonderful fighter, you know. That doesn't have anything to do with anything. It just, the martial art themselves, if it was after 1868, then it's kind of in kind of a generic way of looking at it, they were developed in time of peace, and where there are no more samurai, there are no more ninja. So, and the word Do means the way. So generally, the martial arts with Do tend to have this concept of this pathway to better yourself, self-character, self-discipline, self-enlightenment, self-motivation, self-discipline, self-image, self-esteem, self-character, like that kind of thing. So you see a lot of that, like if you're driving down the street and you see like something in the strip mall, it'll say self-defense and self-esteem and self-discipline and a whole lot of self. It's the way of bettering yourself through martial arts training, and that's Gendai Budo. And not that you don't get that in Koryu, but in Koryu, the tradition, the history and tradition, and passing down that the tradition, literally like koden, literally means like old tradition or old transmission, right? And the passing it down as it was in that time is more important to a Koryu practitioner, you know, and learning the ancient ways, right? So not that there isn't self-enlightenment or self-esteem or self-defense. It's just that you're learning an ancient martial art, and you know that going into it, and its focus is to train in the arts of war, train in the way that those warriors trained in and develop the skills that they developed at that time. So that's kind of the split. So a lot of times I get people that'll say, well, if ninjutsu and bujutsu was these ancient arts, why would I want to learn an ancient martial art or an old art or whatever words they use in the modern day? And that's a very good question. And well, again, I can't speak for every organization and all that kind of stuff. In the Budo Ryukai, we have 5 areas of training. It's called the Goho no Keiko, the 5 methods of training, of authentic training. Those 5 areas, real quickly, we have what's called the Nanamusha Den, which means the 7 traditions, and those are the 7 traditions that we have. So it's going to be Kokoru Kempo, Tenjin Ryu Jujutsu, Tomorushi no Bijutsu, Eshin Ryu Iai Jitsu, Togaku Ryu Ninpo Taijutsu, Gyokoru Koshijutsu, and Kotoru Kobojutsu. And those are the 7 traditions. The second area of training is called Gendai Hinka Waza, and those are going to be the modern variations of the 7 traditions. So I know that you see other organizations say they do Hinka, and they do Hinka from some of the other schools that we have in our particular dojo, right? But when you look at other schools and they do quote-unquote Hinka, it looks like they're still in the 15th century. It looks like they're still doing something that was meant to be, hundreds of years old. All of our Hinka are variations that fit in the now. So we'll take the principles and the philosophies and the strategies and the tactics of the old kata and then have a modern technique that fits in the now from that. So our school, you have to learn the classical kata and a modern variation of that kata. It's not like it's a modern school or it's a traditional school. Here we want to make sure that we understand the root, and then how can we take those principles and then apply it. So when people say, well, I don't know if I want to study Koryu because learning the way of the sword doesn't really fit in my life. Well, I can understand that if that particular Koryu school only taught the way of the sword. Here, Eshin Ryu Iai Jitsu is one of the 7 traditions that we have here. But every technique that we do with the sword, working on Iai Jitsu or Kenjutsu skills or swordsmanship, we also take that particular same concept, and then we'll do it with like a short blade, whether it's a pocket knife or a knife that maybe you could use for concealed carry. And we utilize the same concepts because these arts were made by people that went to war. These arts weren't made by people who were like sat there and you just came up with some bullshit. And that's another thing. Like sometimes I get that question, like, well, I love your modern concepts. Like the other day, I did a video on Instagram and I posted on Facebook and whatnot of me doing some shadow boxing, and it was like 20-30 second little video, and everyone's like, oh, I love the way that you do this and all that kind of stuff. But all those things that I was doing, that 20-30 second clip, is on level number 1. I mean, I was working on my jab and doing a shuffle step with the jab, and I was doing a jab cross, which is Kazami or Kazami Gyaku. It was just a warm-up drill. I think a lot of times people tend to think like it has to be like this painted picture. This is it. There's nothing more than this, and that is just not true. Even in Koryu, not all Koryu are the same. So you do have some Koryu schools that only do that. They don't. It's not a Koryu school that will also teach self-defense. We're a Koryu school that will also teach a modern variation of all the kata. The other 3 areas of training within our school. One is Hojo and Do, which means supplemental exercise. Each one of these 5 areas of training has 7 sub-levels. But Hojo and Do, supplemental training, that's going to be like weight training, cardio training, resistance training, sparring, grappling, kickboxing drills, and I think that you should have to test yourself. I don't care whether, I think that's one of the biggest problems with traditional martial arts across the board. They choose to not test their skills. They just want to learn a kata. And to me, I think that's losing the essence. I mean, you cannot get away from the fact that ninja and samurai, both, it's at a basic fundamental level, they are soldiers. They literally, samurai means one who serves. They were preparing their body for war. They were preparing their mind and body and spirit for war, for combat, for conflict, to get in it, to rough it up, you know what I mean? And if you're not busting your ass and pushing yourself to failure and making your body have to go through intense training and feel pain and physical exertion and all that kind of stuff and testing yourself, then you've lost the essence of the whole damn thing. And there are some organizations to where they're very, what's a good word, academic in their approach. So they read the book, this says this is what they do. And that's fine. I mean, different organizations do different things. That's the great thing about different organizations. That is the great thing, because some people, that's all they want to do. There's nothing wrong with it. If the only thing you want to do is read books and read old scrolls and then try to mimic a few words that's on the scroll, well then go do it, you know? Be happy. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with all the different organizations and the way that they approach things. Just like earlier, I made a mention where I said that sometimes in these other Koryu organizations, or they teach Koryu arts, they'll do a henka, and then their variation looks like the 15th century. That's not me putting a dig on them in any way at all. I'm just saying that's what they do. They'll do like an example, like we'll do in one of our 7 traditions is Gyokoru Koshijutsu, and one of the kata is called koku. So when you do koku, you do the particular technique, but when you do it, you learn the kata. You know, you've learned the kamae, you've learned movement and taijutsu and all this kind of deal, right? And I'm being generic here, but follow me. So you learn the basic skills and you learn this particular kata. Then you try to delve deep into the kata and you start doing variations and henka and all this kind of stuff and really looking deeper into it. You'll see some schools do that and it looks like they're still in the 15th century. And then you'll see school like us. I don't think there's very many schools like us that do it, but there are some where they look at an old kata and then their variations only fit in the modern day. They're looking at it from a tactical perspective. How can we take the principles and strategies of koku and make it work now? Because people don't use that kamae. They might not use that kamae. The footwork's different, the clothing is different, the footwear is different. Everything's much different in the way that we live our lives today. We're not gonna move today like you see that particular old kata. So here you have to learn the old and then the new. So what I'm saying is there are some organizations that just stick to a scroll and they don't spar, they don't grapple, they don't do any physical conditioning at all. It's very academic, it's very knowledge based. You know, and if you're into that kind of thing, then find an organization that does that. There's some schools that they only do 15th century, like this is the kata. And then we do henka, where our henka looks like 15th century kata, you know? Okay, well, if that's what you like, then go do that, you know? If you're one of those people that like, I want to learn the old ways, but I also want to learn modern variations to it, well, then that's what we do, right? And then from that, we do the Hojo and Do. I don't know that sparring and grappling and all that kind of stuff, I don't look at that like that's a reflection of a modern street fight, because it's absolutely not. And I've talked about that enough in enough videos. But what sparring and Hojo and Do and the supplemental training and the weight training and all it does, it helps a student understand how to deal with pain and adversity and intensity, and how to deal with someone who's trying to be intense, how to deal with someone who's trying to defeat you or push you around, and in a situation that's not controlled. It's not kata. That's why we do full contact, you know, the kickboxing drills and the kickboxing rounds and the grappling rounds and things like that, because there's a benefit to that. The 4th area of training that we have is called Nihon Mushikyu, which means the study of the scrolls, or studying the ancient warrior. I think we have the 7 traditions, and I think that's great. And from the traditions, we learn lots of things about the ancient ninja and the ancient samurai and history and culture and Japanese culture and so on and so forth. However, if you only study the tradition, you're only getting it from one point of view. You're not getting it that there could be more to the particular, more to it than what you've been told. And I think that it's very important that the students look outside of the box. So like in our school, like I said, we study Togakure Ryu Ninpo Taijutsu and Tomo Shinobi Jutsu and, you know, etc., etc. So you study these ninja traditions and these ninja schools that we have. Now with that comes the teachings and the kuden and all this kind of stuff that comes with the school, the kata and the waza and all that. But we also have one of our 5 areas is the study of the scrolls. And I think that if you're studying those schools, it is important that you look at like the Bansen Shukai or the Ninpa-den or other sources that are ninja sources that are outside of the 7 traditions. That way you can open your mind to, okay, well, what else is out there? What else is out there? So we do have that type of training in the school, because I think it's important that people open their mind and get more deeper into it, not just the one view, like Tomoru says this, so this has to be true. And we see a lot of people that do that. Well, Togaku Ryu says this is it, this is it. Well, it's not true. That's just the way it is for that school. That's like if you put 100 different styles of karate, they're all going to be different, and they're all going to have different angles, different ways of doing things, different ways of thought, different patterns, strategies, philosophies, principles. Some of them will be the same because it's karate, but not all of them will be the same. There will be subtle differences. Well, it's just like that with any other art form that you see within Japanese martial arts. Ninjutsu Bujutsu is no different. The 5th area of training that we have is called Sesshin Teki Kyoyo, which is like spiritual refinement. Underneath black belt, to be quite honest with you, a lot of that has to deal with history and tradition, learning history, trying to get a better connection to the art itself. And when you're studying traditional Koryu martial arts, I think it's important that you understand Japanese culture and Japanese history, and because again, it gets you closer to that, and the closer we can get to those truths, right? I think that it's important because it helps us have a better relationship with the art that you're learning. So to me, when people say Koryu, so this is where I'm going to take my shot at Koryu and Gendai. When people say, well, we teach Koryu Bujutsu, we teach Koryu this, Koryu that, and I teach swordsmanship or whatever you teach, or Jujutsu, or, you know, Sojutsu, which is the way of the spear, or Kyujutsu, which is the archery, and so on and so forth. When they do that and they only teach the kata and they don't do anything else, they teach the kata, and they have a few kuden lessons in there, and they have a couple little whatever here and there, but for the most part, you come in and you learn your drills and you do kata. To me, that doesn't, you're not going to have a true relationship with the art, because the person who created that art at base, fundamental level, was a soldier. They were samurai. They were going to war. So if you're not going to learn the arts of war, if you're not going to push your body and push yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally, it's very difficult to understand certain little nuances, because you're only looking at it literally face value, black and white, and there's more to it than that. You can't just look at it like, well, then this is it. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm big on many things, like, you know, knowledge. The difference between knowledge and wisdom is a big lesson in our dojo. The difference in truth and fact is a big thing in our dojo. Truth is what you believe, fact is what you can prove. Like people misuse that all the time. It's like, I'm searching for the truth, I'm searching for the truth. Okay, well, the truth is what you believe. Like an example, if I looked at you and I said, do you believe in God? Well, if you believe in God, you would say yes. Then I would say, prove that there's a God. Well, you can't prove that there's a God, you can just believe in the God. But it's the truth that you believe in God. Truth is what you believe. It's the truth that I love my wife. It's the truth that I love my kids. It's the truth that I believe in a higher power. I cannot factually prove that I love my wife. I could prove that I do the things that society deems correct if someone's in love with another person. I can prove that I do the things that a good parent would do for their kids, but I can't prove love, right? It is a fact that I am wearing a Denver Broncos tank top. It is the truth that I like wearing a Denver Broncos tank top. And the difference between truth and fact is extremely important, especially when you're dealing with Kyojutsu, because a lot of people like to reel that in, and they say, oh, I'm searching for the truth, I'm searching for the truth. The truth don't change. Bullshit. If you see somebody's like, what'd you just see? Saw Bigfoot. Man, you telling me the truth? Yeah, I saw Bigfoot. Get them on a lie detector test. Oh, some bitch, they truly believe they saw Bigfoot. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, I do believe in Bigfoot, but it is a fact no one's ever found a Bigfoot, or what we think is a Bigfoot. It's for another conversation. But anyway, that aspect of truth and fact is something that I think is the difference between learning the history of something and understand the kuden of something. Because a lot of these kuden, the folk tales and things like that of the Koryu traditions, right? The Nagare, it was another way you could look at that, like the Ryuha. Those folk tales, maybe some of them don't have, there's more truth to it than fact. And is it, you know, I mean, we don't have a lot of facts for a lot of things that we believe in, right? But it's truth that we believe in it. And those truths is what motivates us to and gets inspired to be something in the martial arts, to learn the ancient arts of the ninja or samurai and so on and so forth, when you look at the factual base of a lot of things that they did, it was horrific. Sawing off heads and taking it in to go get paid and all this kind of stuff, and putting them in a bag and carrying them off the damn battlefield and all this kind of stuff. I mean, when you really get deep into samurai warfare, it's really dark and horrific. But that's not the part that motivates us to be martial artists. That's not the part that motivates us to want to train and study samurai and ninja martial arts. We study them because we get inspired by the old folk tales and the kuden, and then from that we search for ways to train and push ourselves to find the essence of that training. And so when you look at for us at the Budo Kai, when you look at those 5 areas of training, studying the ancient arts, studying modern variations of the ancient arts, pushing our bodies to the extreme through physical conditioning, strength training, cardiovascular conditioning, stretching, skin and bone conditioning, sparring and grappling and all that kind of stuff, and then understanding the scrolls, and then Seshi Teki Kyoyo and spiritual refinement and meditation and finding balance and peace within ourselves and who we are as people. To me, I think we're getting that right there is a better truth, an essence to what it was that they were doing at that time. There's no way you could be a samurai or whatever at that time and not have to, not have certain regrets and not have to deal with learning how to find balance, because what they did was extremely violent, and they had to find that balance. It's not like they were like, samurai and ninja were different than people are today. It's not like they're out there trying to they're enjoying hurting people and doing all these kinds of, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there were some that did that, but for the most part, people are people. Just because the time changed, they weren't any less intelligent than what we are now. We just have more technology now, but they were very intelligent, and they had just as many emotions and all that kind of stuff as we have now. And to do some of the things that they had to do probably put a lot of strain on many of them. So they had to find balance within themselves and peace and come to terms with some of the violent, horrific things that they had to do at that time period. And it was probably pretty hard. But I think they also knew that they had to train themselves to extremes to be able to do extreme things. So in our organization, in the Budo Kai, I feel that we have to have those 5 areas of training because we need that to be able to stay on pace, to constantly push and make ourselves better. I don't think that it's a single kata. People say, well, we're going to learn this particular kata, and these kata has been passed down for 500 years. That's all well and good, but just because you learn the kata doesn't mean you've actually learned the truth of the samurai in any way at all. You just learned some kata. The truth is much deeper than that. And a lot of times people only see things in black and white. Some people only get it from a book, and then they try to find more answers from a book, and they try to do this from a book. And again, I'm not trying to knock any organization that does that. There are many organizations that are more academic in their approach towards their study. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's what people want to do, then people are going to do what people are going to do. I can't change that. Everyone has the right to their own opinion, and people are going to, it's kind of like food, right? Some people eat this kind of food because they like it. Some people eat this kind of food because they like it. There's not any one way. You know what I'm saying? And this, and I get it. Everyone's going to say, we're the best, everyone else sucks. And, they're not part of this organization because they're fake. And they're not part of this organization, so they're fake. Well, that's just stupid. Anybody who approaches another person and says this person's a fake or a fraud or whatever and blah, 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 is generally pretty close-minded. And they say that, oh, this is the only way, this is the only true essence of the study. Probably pretty close-minded. When you look at the arts now again, I'm talking from our perspective, because people will give you their perspective and that's going to be their truth. The facts, the history, the facts don't change. The truth, or the perception of what people want to believe, can change depending on who you talk to, right? But when you look at the martial arts, man, I got this hair that won't get out of my face. When you look at the concepts of ninjutsu, let's just take ninjutsu for an example. The ninjutsu that was in the Sengoku period is not the same ninjutsu that was in the Edo period. And when the ninjutsu's in the Edo period, wasn't the same ninjutsu when it gets to the Meiji period. And the reason for that is, as the times changed in Japan and as the culture changed, so did the things as they passed it down to the next generation. And I think that's important. And for me, that's the beauty of the art. Like, I'll tell you right now, anyone says, I'm a ninja, they're full of shit. The ninja is done in 1868. Cut, dry, simple. 1868, for the most part. I mean, I guess we can argue if there was a few scragglers off the back end of that, but for the most part, 1868, you can just bang, right there, that's samurai, that's ninja, done. However, samurai martial arts, Bujutsu, the ninja martial arts, ninjutsu, continue to be passed on and taught because people still wanted to learn. We've as people, flip it around here, we as people have always been obsessed with wanting to learn things, right? That's why we're always on the internet. We're like, oh, I want to find out this, or I want to find out that, or let me research this or research that, or, you know, it's the same thing. Again, we're still people. So people, even though it may be this idea that, oh, the 1868, there's no more ninja. That doesn't mean people didn't want to know what ninjutsu was. It doesn't mean people didn't want to learn ninjutsu or that it wasn't still available. People still was like, we need to pass it on because shit goes wrong. We want to still have the skill set to be able to pass this information on to the next generation. So that was still there. So when you look at that, then you start looking, okay, so here, like the Bansen Shukai was written in 1676 by Fujibayashi Yasutake. So you look at, let's take that for an example. So there's 1600s, right? Then you have like books maybe in the 1700s, books written in the 1800s, even ninjutsu books written in the 1900s, even early 1900s. That stuff is nowhere near the same type of ninjutsu that you see like the Bansen Shukai. It's not. But that shows you how things grow and become different over time. Does that mean that the stuff that you read in maybe an Ito Gengetsu book written in the 1900s or whatnot, which is still probably 100 years old from now, does that mean that it's relevant in any way, or that you can't learn those aspects or study those aspects, or maybe you study a martial art that has those aspects in it, that's not beneficial to you from a self-defense perspective or learning the art? No, because again, the art has to, it continues to go. The art didn't stop in 1868. Just because the ninja samurai done doesn't mean the art stopped. Now you can say, for those people who really are what I would say is, again, going to like the academic side, they can say, well, I only want to study what was in the warring periods, right? And then I could say, okay, well then I get that. Okay, that's what they want to study. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. People do what people do. But for me, I think the beauty is seeing things as they grow, right? Actually, taijutsu is not ninjutsu. Let's just cut the shit there. Taijutsu is taijutsu. Taijutsu is not ninjutsu. Those aren't two words that mean the same thing, okay? Taijutsu is using your body as a weapon. Ninjutsu is the art of stealth, espionage, and assassination, and it's an espionage, it's spying, it's that kind of thing. It's not put your dukes up and punch, punch, kick, kick. How can you study Koryu or study these traditional arts of ninjutsu or bujutsu? I mean, is it really going to work? It can work. It absolutely can work. You know, like I've said this before in other videos, techniques may change. The technique side may change over time, right? But the principles and strategies don't. They remain the same. So you could take those old principles and strategies and philosophies and apply them in the modern day. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's a very beautiful aspect, and it's a good thing towards training. You should be able to open your mind and say, okay, if I learn this strategy, how can I take this one strategy and apply it many different ways? That's part of training. To look at that and say, well, I'm going to learn this strategy, but I'm only going to do this strategy one way. I'm going to learn this strategy, but I'm only going to apply it one way. That doesn't make sense to me, because that's not what they stood for back in the 1500s. That's not what they stood for in their time period. You know what I mean? I mean, hell, even the Bansen Shukai, like I just mentioned earlier, even Fujibayashi clearly says everything's in flux. You got to keep changing. It's got to keep changing. It's got to keep up time with the times. You know, if it's not up with the times, then, you know, everything's constantly in flux. And I think a lot of people, they lose that concept. They lose that idea. They lose the understanding of that. They think, if I learn this kata, this is it. No, you learn that kata. That isn't just it. That's just that kata. And again, I'm speaking from my perspective. There are some people who are going to be like, nope, you learn the kata and then that's it. Nope, you read the scroll and that's it. And not that those people are wrong. They're giving you their truth. They're giving you what they think. You know, there are many different ways to get to the top of the mountain. You know, I'm just teaching my way. And my way, we have 5 different methods of training. And I understand that maybe the sword techniques that I teach, or the Bojutsu and the staff techniques, or some of these, you know, Shuriken Jutsu techniques, or even some of the old Ninjutsu, you know, Ongyo Jutsu and, you know, Azura Gakure and all that kind of stuff, maybe doesn't have the exact direct application in the modern day, but its principles, its strategies do. And that's why we have the modern variations. And I think pushing your body through pain and understanding that and how to overcome pain and endure pain, I think is an extremely important aspect to martial arts. And unfortunately, and I've said this a million times, but unfortunately I do believe that 99% of all martial arts across the board, I don't give a shit what kind of martial art it is, 99% of all martial arts schools are bullshit. They're teaching bullshit. They're not teaching real skills. They're not teaching what they say they're teaching. You know, there's the 1% that does. There is the 1% that does, but the majority of people are bullshit and all they want is money. You know, and I'm sorry to say that because it sucks, because it would be like, you know, I would like to, you know, say everybody's great, but unfortunately they're just not. So anyway, I don't know what you got out of tonight's lesson. I just wanted to share some of my thoughts with you guys, and I kind of rambled on a little bit. But I guess the question was, does ninjutsu and bujutsu training really work? What is the essence? Can you train in the essence? And hopefully you guys understand where I'm coming from. You understand what I believe is the essence and the steps that we take. I mean, I was very generic in my explanation, but hopefully you guys get where I'm coming from and understand kind of the approach that we take here at the Budo and why we take that approach here at the Budo. You know, so anyway, if you guys are interested in authentic ninjutsu and classical samurai bujutsu, if you guys are interested in training in those 5 areas of training, ancient martial arts, the modern variations, the supplemental training, the sparring, the grappling, the physical conditioning, the, you know, study of the ancient scrolls, as well as Sesshin Teki Kyoyo, which is spiritual refinement, finding balance within yourself. If you're interested in studying those 5 areas of training, if you're interested in training authentic ninjutsu and classical samurai bujutsu, check out my website at www.budoninjutsu.com. There you can get a list of our schools. If you don't live next to one of our schools, we do offer an online ninjutsu dojo where you guys can sign up and start training today. So thank you guys very much for your love and support. I deeply appreciate it. Until next time, take care, be safe, and good luck in your journey in Budo. Bye.